I've ridden a lot of bike parts, and a lot of bikes, and I've done a lot of bike-related stuff. And today I want to talk about some of the most overrated bike parts and bike-related things, and actually maybe a few underrated as well. So let's get started. Now, these are just my opinions, and when I say something is overrated, what I mean by that is it just is literally overrated. Not that it's bad, just maybe people or marketing gives it a 9 out of 10 when really it's only an 8 out of 10. And I think probably an obvious place to start, and especially for me, if you've been following the channel for a while, is I think carbon frames are overrated. And it's not that I never see myself riding a carbon frame again, especially for an enduro bike. I almost certainly will at some point. But it feels like the industry and the marketing is just totally focused on carbon bikes. It's as though if you're gonna make a bike for people to think that it's premium, you have to make it out of carbon. And I think Noli is one of those companies that's just like, no, that doesn't make sense all the time. Let's just make a nice aluminum bike. And again, there's nothing wrong with carbon as a frame material. I think it's actually great in a lot of scenarios. But I think a lot of bike manufacturers are just going, well, let's just make this bike out of carbon because that's what people want in a premium bike, rather than doing it as a design choice. And again, in my case, I've ridden a lot of carbon bikes where that ended up being not so great. So I think carbon frames are, like I said, those are one of those things that it is good. They are great carbon frame bikes where it totally makes sense, and the design required carbon, and they did some crazy stuff where the shape needed to be really unique and they were able to drop weight or make it stiff in areas and compliant in others. That totally makes sense. It's an 8 out of 10. But the way that it's presented in the marketing, and I think the way people feel about carbon as a material, is overrated. And you know what? Just like carbon frames, not all of them are created equal. There are good carbon frames and bad carbon frames. The same goes with aluminum. There is good aluminum frames and there are not so good aluminum frames. And so, yeah, let me know if you agree. Do you think carbon, is that a material that you really look for in a frame? That's what it seems like. If you go to a bike shop, most of the bikes are all carbon. So is that something that you're actually looking for? What if the industry just went totally back to aluminum? Would that be a problem? I don't personally think so. I think aluminum is fine, and it seems to be, it's been stronger for me, and that's been great. And you know what? You can let me know in the comments for every one of these things that I talk about. Is it overrated like I thought? Is it perfectly normally rated? Or is it underrated? Okay, let's move on. All right, let's talk about my dropper post. This very fancy dropper post. And it's actually not the dropper post specifically that I want to talk about, but it's the way that it's actuated. And that's by electronics. This is a great dropper post. I really like this wireless dropper post. It works great, but it's wildly expensive. And I actually don't know if it's even better than a cable actuated dropper post. Once the cable is set up, they pretty much just feel the exact same. The reason that I bought it though is to do tricks, and for that, I really love it. It gets the cable out of the way. But for normal riding and on my next bike, I'm just gonna run a cable again. It really doesn't give me much benefit besides being cool. So what I think is overrated is actually electronics on bikes. It seems like the industry, again, is really pushing for electronics on bikes. And I love electronics. I love phones, I love cameras. I studied electrical engineering. But putting electronics on bikes is just, it's so low on my list of wants. And the reason that I want it is just such a niche case. Like being able to do bar spins is just not something 99.999% of people are going to want to do. And having to charge the batteries and deal with how expensive things are, and even in the case of the GX Axis that I had, it was just a worse product. Like it was just genuinely worse to use than just the regular GX with the cable. It was nice because there was no cable, but then the rest of the product was just worse and more expensive. But when you look on premium bikes and you see premium bikes advertised, it's like, oh, it's the Axis version, that's the top of the line, that's the premium, that's the best. But I don't agree with that at all. And again, on my next bike, I'm going back to a cable actuated dropper post just because it's so simple, it's fine, and it's way cheaper. And same with the derailleur. I'm just gonna go back to the cable actuated derailleurs because they work fine. Now, again, I'm not saying that I will never run electronics on my bikes. If they get better and better and better and cheaper, and to the point where the battery lasts like months at a time, and it's the same price basically as a cable actuated trailer and dropper post, then sure. If the products continue to get better, which I'm sure they will, then yeah, I could see myself eventually getting electronics on my bikes. But again, charging the batteries is just, again, it's annoying. All that to say is, again, I think electronics are overrated on bikes. The flight attendant systems and the things with the suspensions and the automatic this and that and all of that stuff just makes things so much more complicated with what seems like very little benefit to maybe actual drawbacks. And they're all being marketed as like the best and the premium, but it doesn't feel that way to me. So let me know, do you want to run electronics on your bikes? Do you think that the Axis stuff is what you would want? Ignoring price, would you put that on your bike? Or are you kind of like me where I felt the GX Axis was actually worse. It was louder, it skipped gears, it was clunky, you had to charge the batteries. The cable actuated one was actually better. So let me know in the comments, electronics on bikes, overrated, properly rated, or underrated? Underrated, that'll be a really surprising one if people think electronics are underrated, but again, that's what the comments are for. Okay, let's move on. Okay, here's another product that I personally love and I put on all my bikes, and yet I still would agree that they are overrated. And that is the 38mm stanchion forks. I've run both the Zeb and the Fox 38, and I really love them both, and I will continue to put them on my bikes. But I'm a heavy rider, and I'm not always that smooth, and I can see the benefit of the 38mm stanchion. That improved stiffness for me is definitely noticeable. When you're over 200 pounds, and especially if you ride pretty hard or not smooth like me, the stiffness is great, you can feel it. But I think for most riders who are normal size and riding normal trails, you just have a stiffer fork, which might not actually be better. It might actually be worse for you. So first of all, they are quite a bit heavier, and so a lot of people don't like that. Bikes are getting heavier, which again is great for me. I like an overbuilt bike that I know is not gonna break, but I'm a lot heavier than the average rider, and I think the shore is a lot harder on bikes than maybe the average area. And so even though I really like it, and I love these big forks and overbuilt bikes, it's not always great for the average rider. And that's why I think these big forks are overrated. And again, they're being put on all the premium, the high-end bikes, everything like that. But I don't think that's needed. Again, this is a product where I would say, for me, it's a 10 out of 10. I love these forks. I will always buy them. But if I had to rate them in general for the general population of mountain bike riders, they're more like maybe like a 7 out of 10. And I think most people really could just run the Lyric and the 36, just save a bunch of weight. And I have heard a few people complain about it being too stiff. You know, the suspension is supposed to smooth things out, and now you're adding stiffness. Again, that I like, but it's not for everyone. So for those of you who ride enduro bikes, let me know, do you prefer the Zeb and the 38? Especially if you're a lighter rider and you prefer the Zeb and the 38, like if you're 150 pounds and you also feel that the Zeb and 38 are great, you know, again, let me know in the comments, because the general feeling that I'm getting from people out there is that, yeah, it's overkill for what they're riding 99% of the time, and it's just heavier, and it's just unnecessarily stiff, and either it's a harsher ride, or they can't even tell the difference between, say, a Zeb and a Lyric. And so, yeah, in general, I would say that these big forks are overrated. Again, even though I totally love them, and I'm going to put them on every bike. So let me know what you think. Overrated, properly rated, underrated. 38mm forks. Okay, let's move on. All right, I think my first few opinions are probably pretty safe opinions. I'm gonna guess that people generally kind of agree with what I'm saying. I'm gonna go with the hot take one now. I think that overly light bikes are overrated. I think there's a big focus on getting your bike as light as possible, specifically for enduro, obviously like cross country or road riding or whatever, a bigger deal. But I do see a big push for enduro bikes to be like as light as possible. And you know, you're going like maybe a pound lighter, 2 pounds lighter. And I think compromising strength quite a bit, making things like way more flexible and generally worse, all in the name of making just a light bike. And don't get me wrong, I don't want a super heavy bike. I don't think that heavy bikes are better or something like that. But I think that the attempt to make the bike lighter ends up making it worse, which was my experience with some other bikes that I've ridden. I think that they focused on making the enduro bike that they made too light and trying to make it sort of, I don't know, like a zippy pedalable enduro bike. And that just led to it breaking all the time. And the general feeling I get is that people are kind of too focused on the number. Like if you didn't tell them how much the bike weighed and you had them ride these bikes, I don't think that people would be able to guess down to sort of the 2-3 pound resolution that I guess they imagine they can. So again, if there was a really strong bike that was also really light, like if this bike could just be 2 pounds lighter and be exactly the same as it is, sure, I would do it. And in that scenario, I guess I would say again, a light bike it's highly rated, like it's important in that it would be a nice to have, but it comes with just so many drawbacks that in my opinion, it's overrated and it has a net negative. Because personally, I just build my bike up with parts that I think I'm gonna like and just put it all together, and then eventually I'll weigh it for fun and I'll be like, oh, it turns out that this bike is 34 pounds, 36 pounds, one time 37 or 38 pounds. It's just like, oh, okay, well that just is what it is for the bike that I want to ride. But again, let me know in the comments, are you someone who just won't ride an enduro bike that's say over 35 pounds? Because I know those people are out there, and I think that is just, it's overrated. And so, yeah, a chonky bike is totally fine by me. I think light bikes are overrated. Let me know in the comments. All right, let's move on. Okay, let's talk about something I think is underrated. Now I love my big suspension bikes. This is 180 mil in the front, 168 in the rear. I might actually up it to 175. And I love these big enduro bikes. But I think hardtails are vastly underrated. Not many people seem to ride them, but they are super fun. And actually, I'm hoping to buy one for the channel really soon. So if you want to see a lot more hardtail content, subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think hardtails are a lot more fun and a lot more valuable to becoming a better rider than people appreciate. I think when you only ride one type of, you say, bike or thing on your bike, say like clipless pedals, you can develop some bad habits because there's sort of a support system there. Again, let's take clipless pedals as an example. Because your feet are attached to the pedals, and if that's all you're ever riding, I've seen a lot of people develop some pretty bad jumping technique because they're lifting up with their feet, and since they've never ridden flat pedals, they don't know kind of how to move their feet around to properly grip and jump a little bit better. And so same with full suspension bikes. I think if you're only ever riding full suspension bikes and that's all you've ever ridden, especially a big enduro bike like this, yeah, you might have some bad habits because there's so much support here in the rear and it's making up for any bad lines. But if you ride a hardtail, you learn how rough some of your lines are and can be, and you learn to take much better lines. It also just feels like a bit of a different kind of riding as well. Like you can be a little bit more nimble, a little bit more technical. It just is zippier because, usually it's a lighter bike and it doesn't have the suspension in the rear, so you can really just get going. And I really like that. And I think it's a lot of fun. And it's just, yeah, when I'm on the hardtail, I'm kind of playing around a lot more and just doing different things. And you can kind of think of it like cross training. So again, I'm gonna take my own advice. I have a hardtail on the way and I am super pumped to go ride it. And if you watch Josh from Daily Mountain Bike Riders videos, he loves to do crazy things on his hardtail all the time, and I think it's time that I join him. So let me know in the comments. Hardtails, overrated, properly rated, underrated? Okay, let's move on. Now, anecdotally, one of the things I think is underrated is brakes. Well, not using brakes or having brakes, but finding the right brake for you. I've tried a lot of brake brands now, and I found that there's brakes that I really, really like, and there's brakes I really, really don't like. And it genuinely affects my riding and how good of a time I have on my bike and how good I can ride when I'm on my bike. I mean, it might be kind of mental, but it definitely affects me when I'm like, these brakes, I just don't get along with them. So I think it's underrated trying to find the right brake for you. I personally just don't like how much modulation the Code series of brakes have, and I have a worse time when I ride a bike with Code brakes. But again, that's just me. I have my friends who love Code brakes, and they say they're the only brakes that they're gonna run. And it just is a matter of us finding the brakes that we really like. I like Shimano's as well. I like that, really tight bite point, a lot of power instantly. That's the kind of riding I like to do and the feel I like to have in my brakes. And that's something that some people really hate. But I know there's a lot of people out there, and I was one of them, who just always rode whatever brakes came on the bike. And for a long time, it was always the Codes that were coming on my bike. I was just riding them because that's what came with the bike. I never tried anything else. And then one day I tried a bike with Shimano brakes. Then I was able to try the TRP brakes. I tried the Hayes brakes a little bit. And it was like, oh, I like a different style of brake. And I feel so much better when I have that brake on. And it really was, I don't know if it's all just in my head, but it felt like a game changer to me. So I would say when you're out there and you're looking for your next bike or thinking about making an upgrade to your bike or something like that, or you're looking at parts to buy or whatever, I would definitely consider looking at a bunch of different brakes, seeing how they feel, seeing how the lever feels, seeing how the bike point feels, and just seeing what works for you. Because I think that that is really underrated. It affects how the bike feels so much. And I love having a brake that I really like. It's a big deal for my bike. But I'm actually curious about you guys. Will you just ride whatever brake? Is it as big a deal as I'm making it out to be? Or am I weird for having like an extreme brake preference? Let me know. Okay, let's move on. Now I'd like to talk about something just related to riding in general, which I think is actually underrated. I mean, that's just the feeling I get. But that's jumping on a bike. It seems like, in general, not too many people are interested in jumping a lot. And now, I mean, that's not the case when you go to Whistler. Obviously, A-Line and everything, you know, those kind of trails are super popular, and they're super popular for a reason, which is my point. Jumping is amazing. It is so fun. And the thing about jumping compared to riding a technical trail is it's so repeatable. I can ride A-Line all day. I could just go to Whistler Bike Park and just ride A-Line, that's it. But if I go to Whistler and I ride the tech trails, and if I could only ride, say, one tech trail, after about 2 or 3 times, yeah, that's kind of it. I've had enough of that trail. It gets a little bit boring. I've kind of reached sort of my limit. But there's something about jumping where it's a little different every time, and it's the same amount of fun every time. It's hard to explain, but again, that's why trails like A-Line are just so popular, is because it's just so re-rideable. I know learning to jump can be pretty hard. It took me a long time, probably way longer than you think, to feel comfortable on jumps. And even today, there's tons of jumps I come across where I'm like, oh, that's pretty scary, I don't want to ride that. I get nervous and all that kind of stuff. But I love jumps, and I think if I was going to recommend, you know, a type of riding, or if I was going to bring someone riding, letting them ride jumps and just experience, you know, getting up into the air would be a top priority for sure. And I think it's underrated. I think a lot of people go out and ride and never really learn to jump or practice jumping or anything like that. And I think they're really missing out on just honestly one of the best, if not the best parts of riding a bike. I think there's gonna be a lot of discussion down in the comments, but again, let me know. Is jumping, is that something that's important to you? Is it something that you feel also is just the best part of riding? Is it just kind of me and my subjective feeling that jumping is fun? I feel like I know very few people who have taken the time to practice jumping and really give it a go who don't like it. I think that if you feel uneasy on the jumps and they feel scary and dangerous, then that's what's kind of stopping people from jumping and getting more into it. But really, if you just get over that that practice bit and you get used to jumps and you feel more confident, and then you can just experience the jump, it is great. So let me know in the comments what you think. All right, that's it for Overrated, Underrated. Don't roast me too hard in the comments. These are all just fun opinions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.